we've been here before. There is a trajectory to this story. And that trajectory starts with the killing of a Black person by the cops. And then we have protests because there's a system which includes a prosecutor who typically does not arrest or indict that officer. And there's this window of time, which is really what has happened to us over the past few days, which actually is, you know, faster than in some other cases where we get to the arrest. Here, we've only had the arrest of one. We've now seen video that shows that the other three were very much involved in killing George Floyd. And so the prosecutor has arrested and charged the one officer with third-degree murder and manslaughter. Not the strongest of charges, but you know, we'll see how that plays out. And so there's this period of time, you know, waiting for these other three officers. But what happens also is that we have protests, and that during those protests, people take to the streets with their rage. And typically, what we have also seen is somebody who's, you know, was there in Ferguson, was in Baltimore. Our organization does rapid response work at Advance a Project for groups on the ground in these exact kinds of moments. And so what we see is that the protesters take to the streets, that there is an uprising. We do not call it riots in the movement. We call it an uprising because it's a rising up of the people against the powers that be. And so in that moment, what we also see is that the protesters usually get criminalized, and in comes the National Guard, and then people get hurt and people get arrested. And we're going to go down this road towards eventually figuring out whether or not there are indictments. And that's another flashpoint in the trajectory of this storyline about whether or not the justice system is equal. And then we'll see whether or not we got to take to the streets again. But I want to say this, that, you know, what we saw last night in terms of a city on fire and people taking to the streets also in Louisville. I want to shout out Black Lives Matter Kentucky. I want to shout out the Black organizers in Minneapolis, Reclaim Black Visions, Black Visions Collective and Reclaim the Block for being on the front lines. And what we saw is our rage, is our anger playing out. There was a member of the state legislature today who said that that the burning of the buildings are the tears of our community. And that really is what it is. Now, I will say this, that a few things. One is we have seen not only the arrest and charge of this officer, but what we've also seen that we have to say the people got as a victory in this moment is that University of Minnesota has decided not to use the Minneapolis Police Department and not contract with them any longer. The Minneapolis public school system will be voting on Tuesday to end its relationship with Minneapolis Police Department. And for those of us at Advance a Project that have a Police Free Schools campaign, this could be a major victory, because here's the bottom line. We shouldn't have police in our schools who we don't trust in our streets. So we'll see how this plays out, but understand that while we fight for George Floyd and we fight for Breonna Taylor, we've got to do those fights, and we got to be thinking long term about what it means to have communities that are safe with fewer police, because we know that white people get protect and serve and Black people get law and order. I do this work because I'm optimistic that we're going to have a better world, we're going to have a better country. On this policing issue, it is the issue that won't go away. And I will say to you that there are hooks for us. There are hooks around prosecutors' races and all of those elections. There are hooks around sheriff's races. Georgia this year has 154 sheriff's races. county sheriffs. In some places, the sheriff is the law enforcement. In Florida, there's 66 of them. So there are opportunities for us to be able to exert our power and to hold folks accountable. So let's not be hopeless, but let's be careful. Yes. And we got to keep fighting.
And let's be strategic, right? You know, I think that's the other thing here, right? Like, we need to be strategic because our actual lives depend on our ability to be disciplined and to be strategic in moments exactly like this. And so I appreciate the folks who are holding it down on the ground in neighborhoods across the country. You know, all of you all's work, right, to make sure that we are connecting folks, that we are doing the work that we need to do. But it is imperative that we are disciplined and that we are strategic in this moment so that we find our way out of this, and not just out for the sake of being out, but out towards something that's actually a better place and a better world for us.
It is important for us to document this, right? It is the citizens that had their cameras out during the killing of George Floyd to be able to bring this to light. It is the protesters that are documenting this. It is our reporters that are writing and who are reporting from the front lines. And then it is everyday people who are going to their social feeds and sharing their feelings that this is, you know, indeed a defining moment in our country.